The desert sky of planet Rathalon 9 burned gold and red. As twin suns slowly dipped behind the sharp black mountains, the small human settlement called Dust Haven looked quiet from the outside. But inside every heart there was noise, secrets, fear and hope mixed together. The colony had been built by survivors, people who left Earth to start new lives on strange worlds. Among them was a man named Jace Carter, a rugged cowboy with a face rough as the land he worked. He was known for his silence, his honesty, and the way he could tame wild creatures with only a look. But even Jace felt lonely. Deep inside that wide heart of his, he had applied for a mail-order bride, a new government program to help settlers start families and repopulate far colonies. The idea sounded simple. Choose a partner from another world. Pay a fee and meet your match. But when the transport ship landed that morning, the crowd around the docking field began to whisper. They stared at the figure walking down the ramp, tall, graceful, cloaked in long dark silk that shimmered like scales under the sun. Her face was hidden, but her steps were strong, her presence sharp. Everyone called her the Dragon Lady, though no one yet knew her real name. Rumor said she came from the planet Zerath, a world of fire and honor, where people were part human, part dragon. Some believed they could breathe smoke. Others said they had scales that grew when angry. No one knew the truth, and that made her terrifying. When her name appeared in the bride registry, many men withdrew their applications. Who would marry a half-beast? Someone laughed at the bar, but Jace didn't laugh. He only looked at the empty sky and said quietly, "Maybe someone who understands being half-wild." When she stepped onto the red dust ground, silence spread across the colony. Her eyes glowed faintly, gold and deep like molten metal, scanning the humans around her. She carried no bags, no jewelry, no smile. Her name, according to the documents, was Serana Dre, age 39, too old by most human standards for a bride. But she walked with the calm power of someone who feared nothing. The clerk began to call out names of the men who had applied one by one. They stepped back, shaking their heads. "I didn't know she was..." "One of them," one man muttered. "She's too old," said another. "And too dangerous." Serana stood still, silent, her golden eyes unreadable. The air grew heavier. Her breath made a thin smoke in the cooling evening air. No one wanted her. Finally, her name was called again. "Serana Dre, assigned match Jace Carter," the clerk shouted. All eyes turned to Jace. He was leaning against the fence, hat low, boots dusty, watching quietly. The clerk frowned. "Mr. Carter, you still want to continue? You can withdraw now, same as the others." Everyone waited for his answer. Jace looked at her, at the woman standing proud even when humiliated, and something in his chest stirred. He didn't see a monster. He saw someone who knew rejection, who had learned to stand tall when the world looked away. He walked forward slowly, the sound of his boots loud in the silence. When he stopped in front of her, he tipped his hat. "You came a long way," he said softly. She looked at him for the first time, eyes like fire hidden in gold. "I was told humans wanted brides," she said, voice calm but cold. "I was told they needed women, but they only want beauty, not truth." Her words cut the air like a blade. People whispered again, afraid, but Jace didn't move. He said, "Maybe they don't know what truth looks like." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the clerk coughed, trying to break the tension. "So, Mr. Carter, will you sign the bond or not?" Serana turned away, ready to leave the colony. "I will not beg," she said quietly, "not again." She started to walk toward the ship, the long dark silk of her cloak dragging across the sand. The crowd parted quickly, afraid to touch her shadow. Then Jace's voice rose, low and sure. "Then be mine," he said, every head turned. Serana stopped walking. The wind caught her cloak, lifting it slightly, and for a heartbeat, the crowd saw the faint shimmer of golden scales on her skin. Her hand tightened around the strap of her bag. She turned her head slightly, just enough to look at him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You don't know what you're asking." "I don't need to," Jace replied. "I just know I ain't afraid." The clerk dropped his pen. Eyes wide, someone muttered, "He's crazy." But Jace stood firm. Serana stared at him, then at the sky, as if listening to something far away. For the first time, her lips curved, not a smile, but something close, something sad. "You will be," she whispered, "when the fire comes." And before anyone could speak again, the sky above Rathalon 9 cracked open with a sound like thunder. A trail of light tore through the clouds, a burning ship falling from orbit. The crowd screamed, running for cover. Jace grabbed Serana's arm, pulling her back. Her eyes glowed bright gold as the fire in the sky grew closer. And in that burning reflection, he saw the truth. Not a woman, not a monster, but something far beyond both. The ship exploded above the mountains, lighting the desert in a flash of red and white. Serana whispered something in a strange, ancient tongue, and Jace knew in that instant his life, and maybe all of Dusthaven, would never be the same again. The night came fast after the explosion. The twin suns disappeared behind the black ridges, leaving the colony of Dusthaven under a strange red-violet glow. Ash drifted down from the burning sky like soft snow. People shouted, alarms screamed, and smoke curled up toward the stars. Jace Carter stood beside Serana, watching the fire fade behind the mountains. He could feel the heat on his skin and the pounding in his chest. The other settlers ran for their shelters, but he didn't move. Serana's eyes were bright in the darkness. Glowing like two tiny suns, she looked calm. Too calm for someone who had just seen a ship fall from orbit. "What was that?" Jace asked, his voice rough but steady. Serana didn't answer right away. Her gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Then she said quietly, "It was not an accident." Her tone made the hair on his neck rise. "You mean someone shot it down?" he asked. She nodded once, slow and sure. "Not someone," she said. "Something." He frowned. "Something." Serana looked at him then, the golden fire in her eyes dimming a little. "You humans don't believe in old things anymore," she said. "But in my world, the skies still remember." They walked together through the empty streets. The air smelled of dust and metal. Lights flickered weakly from the colony towers. Most people stayed inside, whispering about the dragon lady and the falling fire. Jace led her to his small ranch on the edge of town, a simple house with metal walls, wooden porch, and a long field of glowing crops made for alien soil. "Not much," he said, opening the door, "but it's home." Serana stepped inside without a word, her cloak brushing against the doorframe. She looked around, the worn chair, the old guitar on the wall, the photo of a young woman long gone. Jace caught her glance. "She was my wife," he said softly. "She died during the second drought." Serana nodded once, her face unreadable. "I understand loss," she said. He poured 2 cups of water, handed one to her. Her fingers brushed his for a second, warm. Smooth, almost too warm. "You're not scared of me?" she asked suddenly. Jace smiled a little. "Should I be?" Serana looked down at her hand, then pulled off one of her gloves. Her skin shimmered faintly, pale gold with thin lines like tiny scales running along the veins. "I am not like your women," she said quietly. "I am from the blood of dragons, not myth but flesh, not beast. But born of fire." Jace stared, silent. She continued, "My people once ruled the sky kingdoms of Zerath, before your earth ever sent ships into the dark. We were proud, powerful, but the stars grew cold, our kind faded, and now I am one of the last." Her eyes lifted to meet his, glowing softly. "They sent me here to survive, to mix with human blood, to keep our line from dying." Jace leaned back, still calm, still curious. "So this mail-order bride thing, it wasn't just for love," he said. Serana's lips curved in a sad smile. "Love was never promised," she said, "only survival." Outside, the wind began to howl against the metal roof. Jace stood and checked the window. A storm was coming fast. Red dust swirled under the black sky, glowing faintly from lightning far away. He turned to her. "Storm season's early this year." Serana shook her head slowly. "That's no storm," she whispered. "They found me." A heavy thud echoed outside. Jace grabbed his rifle from the wall, his old Earth-made gun shining in the dim light. "Who's they?" he asked. Serana moved closer to the window. Peering through the cracks, "Hunters," she said. "Machines sent by the Syndicate. They track those who refuse to serve. They think I belong to them." Before he could reply, a bright red beam flashed across the field, cutting through his crops like fire through paper. Jace cursed, pulled her away from the window. "Down!" he shouted. The beam struck the wall, burning a hole straight through the metal. Smoke filled the room. Serana lifted her hand, and the air itself shimmered. For a heartbeat, Jace saw fire curling from her fingers, thin streams of light twisting like living flame. She spoke a single word in her tongue, and the flames turned to golden dust, sealing the wall like molten glass. Jace blinked, speechless. She turned to him, breathing hard. "This is why they fear my kind," she said, "and why they hunt us." The thuds outside grew louder. Heavy steps, Metallic clicks like giant iron insects moving closer. Jace loaded his rifle. "You brought this trouble here," he said. Not angry, just stating a truth. "Yes," Serana said, "and I will end it before it reaches your people." She stepped toward the door, her cloak swirling like smoke around her. He reached out, grabbing her arm. "You can't fight machines alone," he said. Serana looked down at his hand on her sleeve, her voice calm. "Then don't stop me, cowboy." The next moment, the door burst open with a blast of air and light. Metal claws scraped across the floor. A tall iron figure stepped inside, eyes red, voice cold and sharp. "Target confirmed," it said. "Zarathian female. Capture alive." Serana raised her hand again, but the machine was faster. It fired a net of blue energy that wrapped around her body. She fell to her knees, the light burning into her skin. Jace fired his rifle, bullets sparking against the machine's chest. "It didn't fall," he shouted, reloaded, fired again. The creature turned toward him, raising its arm. Serana screamed, not in fear but fury. The net around her burst into flames. Golden fire exploded from her body, knocking the machine across the room. When the light faded, she was standing tall again, breathing hard, eyes burning brighter than ever. Her cloak was gone, replaced by shimmering scales along her arms and neck. She looked at Jace, her voice trembling but strong. "Now you know the truth," she said. "I am not your bride, I am your war." Outside, more machines were coming. The red dust storm howled louder. Jace looked at her, at the dragon lady he had claimed with simple words, and knew he could not turn away now. He loaded his rifle again and said quietly, "Then we fight together." Serana nodded once, and in the burning wind of Rathalon 9, man and dragon stood side by side, ready to face the storm that wanted to erase them both. The night was alive with thunder and smoke outside the ranch. The sand glowed red as more syndicate machines landed, each one taller than a man, each step heavy enough to shake the ground. Inside, Jace and Serana prepared for a battle that neither had planned. Jace's hands were steady as he loaded his rifle. He had faced storms, bandits, and famine, but never something like this. Beside him, Serana's breath came slow. Glowing faintly in the dark like burning embers, she looked calm, but deep inside, old memories began to move like shadows under her skin. The sound of metal claws scraping against stone made her heart twist. She had heard that sound before, and years ago. On her homeworld, Zerath, it had been the same night her kingdom fell. The night the Syndicate came for her people back then. The sky of Zerath had been filled with red moons and silver towers. Dragons soared between mountains of crystal fire. Her father, Lord Dre, was ruler of the eastern spires, proud, wise and gentle. Serana had been young, fierce, a captain of the Flame Guard, but she had also been reckless, believing her people were untouchable. She remembered standing on the balcony of the Sky Fortress, watching dark ships appear beyond the clouds. They were not of dragon kind, nor human. They were something else, cold and hollow. The Syndicate had arrived with machines, logic, and death. They called it unification, but it was conquest. Serana had fought, her fire against their steel. She had burned dozens of their ships, but in the end they came with something even dragons feared, a weapon that drained flame itself, stealing the soul of fire. She had watched her kin turn to ash before her eyes. Her father fell defending the throne, and the last words he said still burned in her heart. "Live, my daughter, even if you must live among the stars of men." The memory faded as another blast shook the ranch. Serana blinked, pulling herself back to the present. Jace shouted, "They're surrounding us!" He fired through the window, the rifle kicking hard against his shoulder. Outside, a machine fell, sparks flying from its chest, but two more took its place, their red eyes glowing in the dark. Serana moved to the door, her hand burning with gold light. "Stand back," she said. Jace didn't argue. Flames leapt from her palm, swirling into a golden serpent that flew out into the night. It struck one machine, melting it into glowing metal. But before she could attack again, something hit her, a pulse beam that threw her to the floor. Jace ran to her side, pulling her up. "You okay?" he asked. Her breath came fast, her eyes flickering. "They're adapting," she said. "They're learning my power." He cursed under his breath. She looked at him, studying his calm face, his human courage. "You should leave me," she said quietly. "This fight isn't yours." He shook his head. "I told you, Dragon Lady. I don't run from storms." Her eyes softened for the first time. Your kind is strange, she said, so fragile. Yet you stand like fire. The machines outside stopped moving. The silence was worse than the noise. Jace looked out and saw a larger figure in the distance. Stepping through the smoke, it was twice as tall as the others. Its body marked with glowing runes. Serana froze. Her voice turned cold. That one? It's not just a hunter. It's a warden. What's a warden? Jace asked. She took a slow breath. The one who ended my world. The ground shook as it approached. Its voice boomed through the dust. Serana Dre of Zirath, by order of the Galactic Syndicate, you are to be returned for genetic reclamation. The word reclamation made Jace's stomach twist. He didn't know what it meant, but it sounded like death. Serana's golden light flared. I won't go back, she shouted. I am no one's creation. The warden raised an arm, firing another pulse. Jace pulled her down just in time. The beam tore through his barn, setting the roof ablaze. He coughed through the smoke, shouting, We can't fight it head on. Serana looked at him, eyes blazing. There's a cave in the cliffs. I can reach it if we move now. They ran out the back, sand whipping around them as the storm grew wild. Behind them, the warden's red lights cut through the night like eyes of a god. They reached the cliffs, sliding down into the dark cracks between rocks. Inside the cave, the air was cool and still, glowing faintly with alien moss. Serana leaned against the wall, her strength fading. Jace tore a piece of cloth and wrapped it around a wound on her arm. It wasn't blood that came out. It was liquid gold. He stared, silent. She smiled weakly. Now you see why they want me. Jace sat beside her, his hat in his hand. So they want your blood, he said slowly. They want what makes it burn, she replied. They think if they can steal dragon fire, they can make soldiers that never die. He looked at her, his voice low. And they're afraid of what happens if you say no. She nodded. They always fear the ones who remember being free. For a long time they sat in silence, listening to the wind outside. Then Jace said, You're not alone now. She turned to him, eyes glowing softly in the dark. No, she said, and that is what scares them most. Far away, in the burning ruins of Dust Haven, the warden stood still. Its red eyes scanning the desert, it raised its arm, speaking into the comm. Target escaped. Activate planetary lockdown. In the cave, Serana's head lifted sharply. She whispered, They're sealing the colony. No one in, no one out. Jace tightened his grip on his rifle. So we fight? She nodded. Yes, cowboy, she said. But this time, we fight not just for us. We fight for everyone they plan to burn next. Outside, the wind roared. The suns began to rise again, red and cold. And deep in the shadows of the cave, the Dragon Lady of Zirath and the Human Cowboy of Dust Haven prepared to make their stand. The cave walls glowed faintly gold from the strange moss. Serana sat by the small fire Jace had made. Her eyes lost in the flames, he watched her silently, wondering how someone so strong could look so tired. Outside, the desert howled, a song of sand and wind that never stopped. For hours, they had hidden in the cave while the Syndicate ship searched above. Jace could hear the engines hum through the ground, like thunder trapped in stone every time the sound came close. Serana's scales shimmered brighter. Her power reacted to danger, glowing softly in the dark. Finally, when silence returned, Jace spoke. So, he said, his voice low. What now, Dragon Lady? She looked up at him, her eyes tired but burning. We can't stay here, she said. They'll find us soon. He nodded. I figured as much. Then he leaned back, tapping his rifle gently. I've got a few tricks, but not enough to fight an army. Serana smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd seen. Then we find one, she said. He frowned. An army? She nodded. Not human, not syndicate, something in between. Her words hung in the air like smoke. He stared at her. You got friends out here? Not friends, she said softly. Debts. By morning they left the cave. Moving across the red desert before the twin suns rose too high, the horizon shimmered with heat. Serana walked ahead, her cloak pulled tight against the wind. Jace followed close behind, his rifle across his shoulder, his hat tilted low. Hours passed before they reached the graveline canyons, a maze of deep cracks and silver rock that stretched for miles. Jace had hunted here before. It was dangerous land, full of strange sounds and shifting sands, but as they entered the narrow path, he noticed something new. Metallic footprints burned into the ground. Shaped like claws, he crouched to inspect them. Your syndicate friends? He asked. Serana shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. Someone else. They moved carefully. Following the trail deeper into the canyon, the air grew colder. Shadows longer. Suddenly, Serana stopped. Stay behind me, she said, her voice tense. Jace raised his rifle. What is it? Before she could answer, the rocks above them moved. Figures dropped down from the cliffs. Tall, armored, with glowing blue eyes, Jace aimed fast. But Serana lifted her hand. Wait, she said. They're not enemies. The figures surrounded them, their weapons ready but not firing. One stepped forward, a man or something close to a man, with half his face replaced by silver metal. His voice was calm but deep. Serana Dre, he said. We thought you were dead. Serana lowered her hood, her golden eyes catching the dim light. I almost was, she said. You owe me. Varek. The cyborg smirked slightly. And you still know how to find me. Jace looked between them. Confused. You two know each other? Varek turned to him, scanning him from head to toe. And who is the cowboy? He asked. Serana replied simply. The reason I'm still breathing, Varek chuckled. A low metallic sound. Well then, cowboy, he said. Welcome to the Iron Shadows. They followed Varek through a hidden tunnel in the canyon wall. It opened into a massive underground base and machines, weapons and hundreds of outlaws moving like shadows. Some were human, others half machine, a few even part alien. It was a secret army made of those the syndicate had thrown away. This is your army? Jace whispered. Serana nodded. They were slaves once, hunted like me. Varek crossed his arms. And now we're ghosts that bite back. Jace looked around, impressed and uneasy. These people, they'd fight the syndicate. Varek smiled. We already do. He pointed to a wall covered with holographic maps, glowing red with syndicate zones. They control hundreds of colonies, but we strike where they're weakest, in factories, labs, prisons. Serana stepped closer to the map, her voice firm. They've sent a warden to Rathalon 9 if we don't stop it. Every human here will be locked inside the colony walls. Varek's metal eye flickered. A warden, he said. That's not easy prey. He turned to her, his expression serious. You sure you want this fight? They're hunting you, not these people. Serana looked at Jace, then back at Varek. They came for me, she said. But they'll burn everything around me too. The syndicate doesn't stop with one target. Jace stepped forward, his voice quiet but certain. She's right, he said. I've seen how they move, and they don't just want control. They want obedience. Varek studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, cowboy. You've got fire in you too. Let's see if you can ride it. That night, the Iron Shadows prepared for war. Jace cleaned his rifle and checked the strange alien pistol Varek had given him. It hummed with blue light when touched. Serana stood near the edge of the base, looking out at the canyon stars. The faint hum of machines mixed with whispers of fear and hope. Jace walked up beside her. You really think we can win? He asked. She didn't look at him, just watched the stars. Winning is not always living, she said softly. Sometimes it's refusing to kneel. He nodded slowly. Then I guess we'll stand, he said. Her lips curved slightly. You have a strange courage. Human. And you have a strange heart, he replied. For a moment, the fire between them was quiet. Warm. Steady. Unspoken. Then a siren blared across the base. Varek shouted from the command deck. They found us. Syndicate drones incoming. The ground began to shake, the lights flickering red. Jace loaded his weapon. Serana's hands burst with golden flame. Varek pointed toward the tunnels. Hold the entrance. Don't let them breach. As the Iron Shadows rushed to their posts, Jace turned to Serana. Guess your debts got bigger, he said. Serana's eyes glowed. Then let's pay them back in fire. The first wave of syndicate drones flew into the canyon, black wings cutting through the air. Red lights flashing like blood, Jace aimed and fired, the blast echoing through the tunnels. Serana stepped forward, her power blazing brighter than ever. When her fire met the metal sky, the desert itself seemed to burn. And in that moment, side by side with rebels, machines, and one stubborn cowboy, the Dragon Lady of Zerath began her true war. The sky over Rathalon 9 burned red that night. The syndicate drones filled the air like a black storm, their red eyes cutting through smoke and fire. The Iron Shadows fought fiercely in the canyons below, blasters flashing, explosions shaking the ground. and at the center of it all stood Serana Dre, her golden fire blazing like a sun in human form. Beside her, Jace Carter fought with every bullet he had, his face streaked with dust and blood. He had never seen war like this, and not against men, but against cold machines that never screamed, never bled, never stopped. Each one he shot fell hard, but two more took its place. The air smelled of metal and heat, and through the chaos, Serana's fire painted the battlefield in gold. But even fire has limits. Her flames flickered weaker each time she raised her hand. Jace saw it, the way her shoulders trembled, the way her breath came faster. He shouted through the noise, "You need to rest." She shook her head, her voice strong but fading. "If I stop, they'll break through." Varric, the half-metal rebel leader, ran up behind them, sparks flying from his damaged arm. "The Warden's here," he shouted. "It's leading the second wave." Jace's stomach twisted, that name again, the one that destroyed her world. He looked at Serana, her golden eyes darkened. "Then this ends tonight," she whispered. The Warden appeared on the ridge, tall as a tower, its body carved with red symbols. The machines around it paused, waiting for its signal. When it spoke, its voice rolled like thunder. "Serana Dre of Zarath, surrender and your human allies will be spared." Serana lifted her chin. "I've heard that lie before," she said. "I won't kneel again." The Warden's eyes glowed brighter. "So be it," it said. "Then they will die with you." It raised its arm, and a blast of energy swept across the canyon. The explosion threw men and machines alike into the air. Jace hit the ground hard, his rifle spinning away. The world rang in his ears, the sky flashing white. He pushed himself up, coughing. The base was in ruins. Iron shadows scattered or dead. Varric was dragging himself from the rubble. His metal eye broken and sparking, Serana stood in the open, fire swirling weakly around her body. The Warden advanced. "Step by step, unstoppable, get back!" Jace shouted, running toward her. But she didn't move. She raised both hands, her flames surging one last time. The golden fire shot upward, wrapping around the Warden like chains. The ground cracked under the heat. The air shimmered for a moment. It looked like she could win. But then the Warden's chest opened, revealing a dark core that pulsed with red light. It absorbed her flames, drinking them in like water. Serana screamed, the fire around her dying out. Her body fell to her knees, her skin pale, the glow fading from her eyes. "Serana!" Jace ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground. Her voice was weak, almost gone. "They learned from Zarath," she whispered. "They built a core that feeds on my fire." He held her close, his heart pounding. No, you're not done yet, you hear me?" But she smiled faintly. "You're stubborn." "Cowboy," she breathed. "Even when the stars fall." The Warden's shadow covered them both. It aimed its weapon. Jace looked up, rage burning through his fear. "You want her? You'll have to come through me," he shouted. Grabbing his rifle, he fired again and again, bullets sparking harmlessly off the Warden's armor. But he didn't stop. Every shot was a heartbeat. Every heartbeat a promise. Varric limped forward, dragging a damaged power core from the wreckage. "Carter," he yelled, "take this," overloaded inside the Warden's chest. Jace looked at the device, unstable, humming with blue light. "It'll blow the whole canyon," he shouted. Varric grinned. "Yeah, but it'll take that monster with it." Serana stirred weakly. "No," she whispered. "You'll die too." Jace looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then I'll die doing something right." He stood, lifting the power core in one hand, running straight toward the Warden. The machine fired a beam that burned across the ground, but he dove aside, rolling behind broken metal. Serana tried to rise, flames flickering around her. Her voice shook. "Jace, don't." He looked back, and for a second, their eyes met. Gold and gray, fire and dust. He smiled. "Guess I'm not the one who knows fear after all," he said. Then he ran. The Warden roared, energy burning bright. Jace leapt onto its leg, climbed the hot metal. Pain tearing through his hands, he reached its chest, pulled open a small panel, the core glowing like a heart of lightning. "Go to hell," he whispered, and slammed the power cell inside. The light turned blinding white. The explosion ripped through the canyon, shaking the desert for miles. Fire and metal flew into the sky. The sound was like the cry of a dying god. When the dust settled, there was silence. The Warden's remains lay broken. Burning slowly, Varric crawled from the rubble, his eyes wide. "Carter," he whispered. But there was no answer. Serana knelt beside the crater, her hands trembling. She could feel the heat still rising from the ground. Her eyes filled with tears that shimmered gold. "He's gone," she whispered, her voice shaking. "The fool cowboy." The wind swept across the desert. Carrying ashes into the sky, Serana closed her eyes. Her body began to glow again, faintly, softly. Golden fire spread from her chest to the ground. She whispered words in the old tongue. A dragon's prayer, ancient and sorrowful. And then, in the glowing light, a single heartbeat sounded from the crater. Jace gasped, coughing, alive but broken. The explosion had thrown him clear just before the core went off. Serana ran to him. Tears streaming down her face, he smiled weakly. "Told you I don't die easy." She laughed through her tears. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said, "but at least I'm yours." For a moment, under the ruined stars of Rathalon 9, the cowboy and the dragon lady held each other, broken, burned, but alive above them. The night sky began to clear and far away. In the silence beyond the stars, something ancient stirred, watching them, waiting. Because their war and their love, and was only beginning. The dawn rose cold over Rathalon 9. The fire from the canyon still smoked. Ash floated through the air like gray snow. The Syndicate's war machines lay broken across the desert. Twisted metal, dead lights and cracked glass that once glowed red. Serana sat beside the crater where the warden had fallen. Her cloak torn, her skin marked with faint silver burns. Her golden eyes stared at the wreckage, but her thoughts were far away. Beside her, Jace Carter stirred slowly. His breath rough, his body aching from the blast. He coughed, sitting up. "Tell me I at least hurt that big tin devil," he muttered. Serana turned, half smiling. "You did more than hurt it," she said softly. "You ended it." He looked at her face, strong, tired, beautiful in a way he couldn't explain. There was fire still in her eyes, but behind it sorrow too. She reached out, brushing a bit of ash from his cheek. "You nearly burned yourself for me," she whispered. He gave a weak grin. "Guess I got a bad habit of saving people who breathe fire." She laughed, the sound soft but real. For the first time since landing on this world, she let herself breathe. But peace never lasted long on Rathalon 9. Varric limped over, his half-metal face dark with soot. "The Syndicate won't take this loss quietly," he said. "They'll send another warden, maybe more." Jace frowned. "So we just wait for 'em to hit us again?" Varric shook his head. "No, cowboy, this time we hit them." Serana looked up sharply. "The Syndicate's command base?" she asked. Varric nodded. "Orbital Station Vorn," he said. "It's where they control every ship, every drone, every lockdown order. You take it down, you free every colony in this sector." Jace's eyes narrowed. "And you got a plan for that?" Varric grinned slightly. "Half a plan. The rest depends on your dragon lady here." Serana stood, her cloak whipping in the morning wind. Her voice was calm, but fire glowed faintly under her skin. "Then let's finish this," she said. "No more hiding, no more running." By midday, they were in motion. The iron shadows gathered what was left of their strength, a handful of ships, a few dozen soldiers, and enough firepower to start a war. They worked in silence, welding, loading, repairing. Jace helped where he could, fixing weapons, patching armor. Serana moved among the fighters, silent but fierce. They looked at her not with fear anymore, but respect when the time came. They stood before their ships under the burning sky. Varric raised his arm. "Listen up," he shouted. "You've all seen what the Syndicate does. They chain the strong, they burn the free, they erase those who say no." He looked toward Serana and Jace. "These two showed us something different. Fire and heart. That's what we fight for today." Cheers rose across the canyon. The air trembled with engines coming to life. Serana turned to Jace. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. He smirked. "You think I came this far just to ride home?" She smiled faintly. "Then let's burn the sky together." Their ship, the Emberlight, launched first. Cutting through the red clouds, Jace sat at the pilot's seat. Hands steady on the controls, Serana stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the dark horizon high above. The Syndicate's orbital fortress hung like a steel moon, enormous, silent, waiting. When they reached the upper atmosphere, alarms filled the ship, missiles inbound. Jace shouted, jerking the controls. Explosions flared around them. Varric's voice came through the comms. "Shields down to 40. Push through, cowboy, when we're right behind you." Jace gritted his teeth. "I ain't planning to stop now," he said. Pulling the ship into a hard roll, Serana's hand rested on his shoulder. Warm, glowing faintly. "I can help," she said. Her eyes burned gold, and light began to flow through the ship's panels. The engines roared brighter, faster. Jace stared at the energy readings, amazed. "You're powering us?" She nodded. "My fire isn't just for burning, it's for life." They broke through the missile field. The orbital fortress filling the view ahead, miles of steel, spires and red light. "Brace yourself," Jace said. "We're going in hot." The ember light dove straight into the docking ring. Smashing through the outer bay doors, metal screamed, alarms blared, and the ship skidded to a stop inside the hangar. Before the smoke cleared, syndicate guards poured in, rows of black-armored soldiers. Weapons glowing red, Jace grabbed his rifle. Serana stepped forward, her eyes shining bright again. "Stay behind me," she said, her flames burst outward. Golden wings of fire spreading from her back. The guards froze, too late. She swept her arms, and the air turned into a storm of light. The first wave fell in seconds. Jace moved beside her. Firing into the chaos together, they fought like one heartbeat. Fire and steel. Fury and love. They pushed deeper into the fortress. Through narrow halls and metal corridors, everywhere they went, alarms screamed. Varric's voice echoed through the comms again. "We've breached the lower decks. Meet us at the core." Serana nodded. "Come on," she said, grabbing Jace's hand. Her touch burned warm and steady. Not pain, but life. He squeezed her fingers. "I'm right here. Partner." They reached the central core chamber, a massive circular room glowing red and blue. At the center floated a crystal sphere pulsing with energy. Serana stared at it, her face pale. "That's it," she whispered. "The Nexus Core. It feeds every warden, every drone, every lock across the colonies." Jace raised his rifle. "So we blow it?" She shook her head. "No, I destroy it. Only Dragonfire can end what Dragonfire began." Before he could answer, a cold voice filled the chamber. "You think we would not prepare for your return?" From the shadows stepped another warden. Sleeker, darker, more alive. Its red eyes burned with something like hate. "I am Warden Prime," it said. "The last of Zerath's stolen fire." "You cannot destroy what made you." Serana froze, her voice breaking. "They used my father's core," she whispered. "His flame, they turned it into this." Jace looked at her, seeing the pain behind her calm. "Then let's set him free," he said softly. The Warden Prime raised its arm, lightning flashing between its fingers. Serana stepped forward, fire igniting around her. "Jace," she said, "no matter what happens, don't stop me." He gritted his teeth. Not planning to. The two forces met, flame against stolen flame. The room shook, metal melting, walls splitting. Varric shouted in the comms. "Get out of there! The whole station's gonna blow." Jace ran toward Serana, but the blast threw him back. He watched as her light grew blinding, her wings of fire spreading wide. The warden screamed, its armor cracking, and in that last moment, Serana's voice echoed through the flames. For Zerath, for freedom, for love. The Nexus core shattered in a burst of golden fire. The entire fortress began to fall apart. Jace crawled to the console, gasping. "Serana!" he shouted. Through the fire, he saw her silhouette, burning bright, then fading into light. And as the fortress crumbled around him, he whispered her name again. "Then be mine. Forever?" Silence, that was the first sound after the fire. Silence and the slow hum of broken stars drifting in space. The great Syndicate fortress, once bright with red lights, now floated shattered above Rathalon 9. Its metal skin was cracked open, its engines gone, its heart burned out. All across the colonies, red alarms went dark. Chains unlocked. Drones fell silent. The system that had ruled hundreds of worlds with fear was gone. And at the center of the wreckage, a small escape pod drifted slowly toward the planet. Inside, Jace Carter lay half awake, his face pale under the flickering lights. Smoke filled the cabin, sparks falling like fireflies. He groaned, trying to sit up, his chest aching from the blast. "Serana," he whispered, his voice rough. There was no answer, only the gentle hum of the pod and the whisper of the stars outside. He remembered the light, her fire filling the sky, her wings spreading wide as the Warden Prime screamed. Then everything had turned white. He remembered reaching out for her hand, but it was gone. And now all that was left was the soft echo of her last words. For freedom. For love. The pod broke through the atmosphere. Fire streaking across the dawn sky below, the desert of Rathlon 9 waited, wide and quiet again. The pod slammed into the sand, skidding until it stopped near the ruins of Dusthaven. The hatch hissed open, letting in the warm red wind. Jace crawled out coughing, falling to his knees. The land was burned but alive, and so was he somehow. He looked up at the rising suns, one gold, one red, and whispered, "You did it, Serana. You burned them all." Days passed. The iron shadows began to rebuild. What was left of them? Anyway, Varric survived, his half-metal body scorched and cracked. He came to Dusthaven on the third day, his steps heavy but sure. Jace was fixing the ranch fence when he saw him. "You should be dead," Varric said, half smiling. "Been hearing that a lot lately," Jace replied. Varric looked at the open sky, now clear and free of red lights. "You know what you two did?" He said, "You broke the Syndicate's core net. Every slave chip, every warden, gone. You gave people back their will." Jace lowered his hat. "She gave him that," he said softly. "Not me." Varric looked at him for a long moment. "You still think she's gone?" Jace didn't answer. He just looked toward the horizon, the endless desert glowing under the suns. "Some fires," he said finally. "Don't go out easy." That night he sat by the old ranch fire. The wind whispered through the dry grass. He closed his eyes and remembered her voice, and calm, proud, full of quiet power. He remembered the way she'd looked at him that first day, when everyone else turned away, and he remembered his own words. "Then be mine." He smiled sadly. "Guess you still are," he whispered. The flames flickered strangely. Then for just a moment they turned gold. He blinked, and the air grew warm, too warm. From the edge of the field a soft glow rose, a shape forming in the light, tall, graceful, cloaked in shimmer. Jace froze, his breath catching. "Serana?" The figure stepped forward slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly like embers under glass. Her voice was quiet, tired, but real. "You always call me back, cowboy." He stood, hardly believing it. "You're alive," he said. Almost laughing, she shook her head softly. "Not the same as before," she said. "My body burned in the core, but the fire found another way." She looked around, at the desert, the stars, the broken world. "I'm part of this planet now. Its heat, its breath, its flame." He stepped closer, his hand trembling. "Can I still touch you?" She smiled sadly. "You already do," she said, and placed her palm on his chest. Warm light spread through him, gentle, steady. He could feel her heart like a pulse in the air. Not flesh, not ghost, but something in between. "I don't belong anywhere anymore," she said softly. He shook his head. "You belong right here," she smiled, tears glowing like fire dust. "You humans," she whispered. "You love even when it hurts?" He laughed quietly. "Ain't that what makes it worth it?" They stood together in the golden night. No syndicate, no machines, no war. Just silence, wind, and two hearts that refused to stop beating. Serana looked up at the stars. "Do you know what freedom sounds like?" she asked. Jace tilted his head. "What?" She smiled. "It's this," she said. "The world breathing without fear." He took her hand. "You gave it that breath," he said. She shook her head. "We did." The wind grew stronger, carrying sand across the dunes. Her light flickered faintly. "It's time," she whispered. "Time?" he asked. "I can't stay long in this form," she said. "But I will always be here, and in the fire, in the sun, in the dust that remembers your name." He swallowed hard, his voice low. "That ain't fair." She smiled. "Love never is." He reached out, his hand passing through her light. It felt warm, alive. "Then promise me one thing," he said. Her golden eyes met his. "Anything. Don't forget me." She smiled sadly. "Jace Carter," she said. "Even fire remembers the one who dared to touch it." And with that, her light broke into sparks that drifted up into the dawn. He stood there, silent, watching until the last ember vanished into the sunrise. The desert wind wrapped around him. Soft and warm, he closed his eyes and whispered, "Then be mine, always." Years later, travelers spoke of Dusthaven, a quiet place where no machines ever came again. They said at night when the sun slept and the wind turned gold, you could see a shape of light walking beside a lone cowboy under the stars. Two figures, one human, one made of flame, still together, still free.